The video game console has been a cultural phenomenon since the late 1970s. Ever since the introduction of the Atari 2600, the general public has been used to escaping reality in order to be entertained. As the years went on, the games and the consoles have changed, allowing for more enriched storylines, enhanced gameplay, and an overall improved outlook on how we see each other as well as ourselves. Nowadays, the idea of a great video game must be on the latest generation of console, with the best graphics, and with the most generic of storylines with absolutely no meaning. However, once in a great while there is that one game that becomes a cultural standout, that makes us ask questions as well as contemplate the meaning of ourselves. One of these games has achieved this tenfold. Released in 2001, in the early part of the PlayStation 2's life cycle, it is known as one of the greatest survival horror games ever, as well as being one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. I will be making a full analysis on why Silent Hill 2 is one of the most impactful games ever. This is a journey through Silent Hill. As majority of the gaming world is obsessed with video games that have big guns and characters that are as bland as melted vanilla ice cream that has been sitting in a beige-colored room, there are a select few that really capture the essence of human emotion. If someone dies in a game, you're supposed to feel sad and regretful, right? There's supposed to be a certain tension in every moment of a game in order for a person to truly become fully invested in the characters and the environment. You have to become worrisome over your actions and behavior. All this can be achieved over the way the game sets you up for your big adventure, either by the sights of the game or the sounds. All this is called atmosphere. And with the proper atmosphere, one can get truly, fully invested. I will explain how the atmosphere of Silent Hill 2 executes all the valuable points of immersion through a video game. First, I will identify the key points in the plot of the game and how it impacts the setting, as well as the characters and creatures of Silent Hill, and their meanings and symbolism. As for those who are unaware of Silent Hill 2 and have not played the game, there will be major spoilers ahead. So consider this your spoiler alert. Silent Hill 2 takes place in the titular town of, you guessed it, Silent Hill. It is a place where nothing is quite normal. There are restaurants, a bowling alley, a hotel, a museum, hospital, church, and much more buildings that many would consider as norms for a small town. But, depending on who you are and what your past is, the town is seen much different to everybody. The layout stays the same, but the appearance is different. To our protagonist, James Sunderland, Silent Hill is an abandoned town of horrors. We begin with James at a rest stop, taking a long good look at himself in a mirror before entering the town. He stares at his reflection in a fitting manner as he reflects on the circumstances of him receiving a letter from his wife telling him to meet her in Silent Hill. Well, it seems normal enough, right? But what truly makes this a predicament for our protagonist, James, is the fact that he received this letter from his wife, who's been dead for 3 years.
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. My wife's name It's ridiculous. Couldn't possibly be true. That's what I keep telling myself. A dead person can't write a letter. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago. So then, why am I looking for her? Our special place. What could she mean? This whole town was our special place. Does she mean the park on the lake? We spent the whole day there. Just the two of us, staring at the water. Could Mary really be there? Is she really alive? Waiting for me?
Well, this letter from Mary seems pretty important, but then again, it has to be if we received it at the beginning of the game. The reason why we received it so early on is the fact that it helps establish the tone for the game, and it helps give us insight on who James is as a person and a little background on what we thought was his deceased wife Mary. But most importantly, it gives not only the character of James Sunderland motivation, but it gives us as the player a goal to figure out the whereabouts of James's wife, and this is our only point of reference of who our characters really are currently. But as the plot advances, as you play the game, you find out more of the background of James Sunderland and his true relationship with his wife. Upon entering the town of Silent Hill, the player is immediately immersed into a thick and heavy fog that gives the player limited visibility and sets up the feeling of isolation, which is accomplished by the sound of only your footsteps. This feature of the game carries out through the whole story. The idea of being on your own with no one friendly to help you is the fear known as isolophobia, which is the fear of being alone. The development team known as Team Silent wanted to produce a game which can affect your mindset on a subconscious level. And according to the Book of Lost Memories, a book that basically covers an in-depth information in regards to the first 3 games, Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2, and Silent Hill 3, the main goal was to make the player as uncomfortable as possible. This is done by taking the character's personal fears and vices and making them inhabit the world of Silent Hill. So, as James enters the town, he encounters different monsters that symbolize his internal emotions as well as his own past. This subtle symbolism gives the player just the right amount of information about James in a very, very clever way. Each of the monsters throughout the game represents something in James and Mary's life. With this symbolism, we find out the true history of James. And the first monster that we do encounter is known as the lying figure. Their bodies are trapped in what appears to be straitjackets made from their own flesh, covering them from head to toe with feminine legs and buttocks, and platform shoes hidden underneath their flesh. When they scurry across the ground, they make a high-pitched wailing noise. It sounds like the scraping of metal against cement. The lying figure appearance description from SilentHillWiki.com. This creature represents a hospital patient, thrashing around in agony. This represents James's wife Mary, and her state of terminal illness just before she died, and the feeling how she viewed herself during her illness. The lying figure attacks its enemies by spitting acid, which represents her illness along with the way Mary spat hateful words at James. From this description, we can determine the behavior of Mary before she died. Overall, the enemy types throughout the game are referencing this symbolism of sex, guilt, and pain, many of which are right out in the open. For example, as you progress throughout the game and as your punishments and environment worsens, so do your enemies. The mannequin is highly sexual in symbolism. The mannequin is a manifestation of James's natural urges and his inclinations. This creature is likely manifested because of his sexual frustration with his wife's ailment. Mannequin description: SilentHillWiki.com. Now, the abstract daddy is a different representation of sexual abuse because this creature is a monster from Angela's Silent Hill. Angela is a person we're introduced to in the game as she is called into Silent Hill for her own reasons. Her reason was she's looking for her mama. As we meet up with her later, we find her facing off with her own personal monster, or a representation of her punisher in the abstract daddy. First, we fight the monster in a room of flesh, colors, and tones with exactly 23 pistons going in and out of the room. The undertones of this room, as well as the monster, both represent the sexual abuse that Angela has faced from her father. The room that the monsters fought in represents her uterus, and the 23 pistons are in reference to how many times she was molested. The monster itself represents her father, hanging over the bed as he abused her. These are examples on how the amount of thought can go into the process of creating a completely immersive game. You could go the easy route and just have a generic monster that jumps out and yell, "Boo, I'm looking at you, Dead Space." But with Silent Hill 2, the thought and preparation did amount to more than expected. Later, James progresses into a rotting apartment complex where he first meets his first sign of humanity. This is where we meet Eddie Dombrowski. We meet Eddie. We first enter the apartment room, and the first thing that we see is a dead man. Not a monster, a dead man lying in an open refrigerator, as we hear the sounds of a man vomiting in a nearby bathroom. We enter this bathroom to see Eddie uncontrollably vomiting into a toilet while denying that he killed him, aka the man in the fridge. Originally, James is playing along with Eddie and being defensive as he vomits. Now, Eddie vomiting represents a psychological term known as murderer's guilt, which means that after someone kills somebody, the person who done it becomes very physically ill to the point of vomiting. With Eddie, we find out that he's been bullied as well as physically and verbally abused throughout his whole life due to his appearance. This creates an uneasy representation of the common man. Even though that he is a person, the game proves that there are flaws in everybody. That it's not just the main character that deserves a great background or thought behind everything that the person does. In addition, later in the game, the character along with the player begin to realize the folly of man, both of which are shown in James and the other people visiting Silent Hill. By connecting all the dots yourself and not letting the game literally spoon feed you the plot points and answers, the player feels more immersed into the world and feels the importance of his or her actions. We find out that the character Angela was abused by her father and she in fact killed him. We make these connections by the items she gives us along with the dialogue spoken between her and James. Also, we find out that due to Eddie's mental instability, he kills other people without realizing the gravity of his acts. After we complete the puzzle of finding out the meanings of why these two strangers would be in Silent Hill, is literally the last moment that we see them. In order to save ourselves and stop Eddie from killing others because they didn't look at him the right way, the player is forced to kill him and release him from all his problems. After dealing with Eddie is also the last moment we meet Angela. and we meet her in the hotel that is on fire, yet nothing is burning James. The fire is what Angela sees. Fire is her Silent Hill.
No! Don't pity me. I'm not worth it. Or maybe you think you can save me. Will you love me? Take care of me? Heal all my pain? That's what I thought. James, give me back that knife.
No, I won't.
Saving it for yourself?
Me? No, I'd never kill myself. It's hot as hell in here.
You see it too. For me, it's always like this.
Those are the last words we hear from Angela as she walks into the fire, supposedly committing suicide off screen. Each character's screen time is no more than 15 minutes for an average 8.5-hour game, yet we feel connected for someone that we don't see for that much in the game. She was the first sign of life that James met in the game before reaching Silent Hill, and due to the simple dialogue that's spoken between them, we are caring over them and their safety. This further drives the point of atmosphere and emotion in the game. These characters that we barely see, but due to the way they're presented to us, we are emotionally attached. Now, there are many more ways that I can describe the enormity of the game, like how when James goes down the holes and ladders in the labyrinth continuously, that it represents James's descent into hell. Or even how you treat yourself and others in the game, it can give you one of 6 different endings. Even the items you hold or look at or listen to can help determine how the game ends. But at the end, the player is wondering, what really happened to James's wife Mary? To close out this video, I will give you my final and most crucial point of why Silent Hill 2 is the most influential game that there is out there and is the best of its genre. It's not the town, it's not the main character, or the insane twist endings that happen. It all falls into what the game represents and what it is representing. And that representation is from the face of the franchise. Pyramid Head. He serves as a manifestation of James's unfulfilled desire for punishment for married shepherd Sunderland's death. They could also represent the darker part of James's personality. Pyramid Head shows this by committing brutal acts that James has done or has thought about doing, such as murder, and his constant twitching could symbolize his James' needs, emotions, and fears. Pyramid Head appearance description, SilentHillWiki.com. Now, Pyramid Head is the anchor reason of why this game is deserving of such praise. He is the creature that all others fear. He even abuses the lesser monsters and is the strongest and can kill with one swing of his sword. The most considerable fact about him is that he's impossible to kill in the game. He is the antagonist. The reason I chose this as my final point is the fact that Pyramid Head represents what the whole game is about. The idea being that the whole game represents James's punishment to himself. Pyramid Head's helmet bears a resemblance to the Red Hood's, referencing his role as an executioner of sorts. As you progress, James and the player is led to what the whole idea of what Silent Hill is about, and why James is there. However, the helmet is also designed to appear extremely uncomfortable. It acts as a torture device as well as a symbol of authority. The monster also carries a giant sword with him throughout most of the game, which represents James's burden that he carries for his wife. As the tension builds and as the player reaches the climax of the final face-off between two Pyramid Heads is where we learn some great facts about the game. Before we reach the battle, we see that the letter from Mary that James received at the beginning of the game turns from a page filled with writing to a blank piece of paper. As we encounter dialogue with others, we see that James is experiencing more doubt in the tone of his voice. Then, we enter a hotel room as we put in a videotape that shows James himself killed his own wife 3 years ago by smothering her to death with a pillow. Then, we realize that is what led him to this point. That it was his subconscious taking him to Silent Hill. Everything until that point, the letter, the monsters, even Pyramid Head, were all figments of James's imagination. As James takes a step forward to face his punishment via two Pyramid Heads, he realizes that they have been created to punish him for his sins.
I was weak. That's why I needed you. Needed someone to punish me for my sins. But that's all over now. I know the truth. Now it's time to end this.
As he refuses to run away, he turns and attacks the Pyramid Heads. With James now seeking vengeance as opposed to punishment, the Pyramid Heads cease to function and deliberately impale themselves on their spears. This basically atones James from his wrongdoings. As I stated before, depending on the way the player ends up going through the game, you can have up to 6 different endings. Even though I only touched on a few different elements of the game, I have not described everything, not all the places or the people. The thing is, that is what the game's all about. It leaves you asking more questions after some are answered. It forces the player's involvement by being ambiguous and leaving hints while remaining provocative and engaging. Plague of Gripes. This is why this game deserves so much praise. This is why it sets itself apart from other would-be contenders and pretenders. Silent Hill 2 is the apex of what survival horror is and the basis of what others strive to accomplish.
That's why I did it, honey. I just couldn't watch you suffer. No. That's not true. You also said you didn't want to die. The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
Pork chop sandwiches! Oh shit! Get the fuck out of here! What are you doing? Go! Get the fuck out of here, you stupid idiot! Fuck, we're all dead! Get the fuck out! My god, did that smell good.
Detect it, did no going and you tell me do things. I done running.
He's just standing there, menacingly! Get out of there, SpongeBob!
It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch! It's me, Austin! It was me!